No, on Tuesdays I'm here. And now in the morning. And then it's about in class.
You didn't check it out?
Oh, me?
Yeah. I just wondered if it was working. I always assume it is.
I was trying to do it, but it wasn't working.
Okay. Try. Can you get the lights for me? Not bad. 11 and a half minutes. The funny thing about coming here to Delta is having to set up all my own equipment. At every other school that I teach at, it's all set up. So I just walk in, turn it on, and log in. So it's funny because it adds that extra little bit onto the beginning of the class, but it allows me then to play Tupac. So there you go. But then Tupac fades out as the stream goes live because, as we discussed, I can't have any copyrighted material on the live broadcast or the YouTube recordings. But as we also discussed, some of this material may be copyrighted by you or the school or myself. But the question is still who owns it. We don't know. But we haven't been rated yet, so that's outstanding. I wanted to start class off by talking a little bit about the expectations of the course, not as it pertains to, well, a little bit as it pertains to you and to the class, but so much so that it pertains to our subject matter in tonight's lecture. So you might think that I'll be going on a rant about expectations and this and that all the emails that I send are disconnected, but if you really pay close attention, you'll find the connections there. And the reasons for my emails and the reasons for my rants to start the class are actually all entwined. And so if you can grasp those connections and understand those connections, then you have a good sense of what sociology is. So I'm going to write a couple things up on the board, and assumptions, perceptions, and expectations.
Oh, shoot. I mean, shoot.
And behavior. Okay, so this is going to play a part into tonight's discussion. Assumptions, perceptions, expectations, and behavior. And I was thinking of two examples on my drive in here. You know I drive 2 hours here, so I have a lot of time to think and listen to my Pandora station and my podcast. But I came up with two examples that might strike a chord with you. And the first example is the, let me paint this picture. McDonald's, you all aware of McDonald's is? And Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Have you ever heard of that? Big fancy steakhouse, or what's the most fancy restaurant that you can think of? Good, funny. Let's just say a very fancy steakhouse at McDonald's. Now, remember what we're talking about: assumptions, perceptions, expectations, and behavior. When you go to McDonald's, what are some of your assumptions? when you walk in the door to McDonald's. I could lead you, but I'm sure you have some assumptions.
That you're gonna get your food fast.
Fast. McDonald's is fast. What else? Okay.
Well, supposedly I do.
Fast and inconsistent. Not all of them. That means inconsistent. So when you walk in, inconsistent, maybe you're not sure if it's going to be fast or not. What else are some assumptions when you walk into McDonald's? Explain.
Opposite when you say talking about inconsistent, sometimes it'll be like, you know, food be made fresh, and sometimes you'll get a cold burger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fresh, maybe cold, fast, maybe slow. What else?
Unhealthy.
It's unhealthy. So when you go in there,
You know this. What you
you know what you're gonna get. You know what's on the menu. When you walk into McDonald's, you say unhealthy. You don't look up at the menu and go, hey, where's the fruit salad? I don't get this. Where's the sushi? Where's the stir fry? You don't like that. Doesn't. You already know. You have a preconceived notion.
I'm at McDonald's. I'm in a hurry.
So speaking of your behavior, you're in a hurry. And so the decision that you make to go to McDonald's sometimes based on how much of a hurry that you're in.
All right.
You don't feel like cooking. So conversely, let's talk about the super fancy steakhouse. We'll call it Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It's a really fancy one. Actually, it's not technically a chain, but there are a couple of them. I believe there's one in Chicago if you ever want to go. So if you go into a super fancy steakhouse, who's ever been to a really fancy restaurant? Give me some. When you walk in the door.
Good service.
So there's going to be good service. Can you explain, what does that mean, good service?
They greet you.
Like,
so they're happy to see you.
right.
You walk in the door and they're like,
They want to know what I need.
what do you need? I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Okay, you walk into McDonald's. What do you see? Hey, I'm here. What do they do?
They might not even pay no attention to you when you walk in.
Shit,
Or
you
if
know, wait and look at the menu.
Or if you're like me, and you're like, you know, when I was in college and I worked at a Jimmy John's, like, people would walk, we open at 10 a.m. And, you know, that's hard to get up that early. And then I'd get there, I don't want to be here. And then the customer walks in at 10:05, and this is my first thought. How can you possibly be hungry and up at 10:05 wanting to, so I'm mad that they walk. I'm mad, you know. But then again, okay, so let's talk about the steakhouse. You walk in, you're greeted, everybody's happy to see you, they're nice, you know, everything's good. What else happens when you sit down? What else happens?
They probably place you, show you where to sit.
Oh, so they're
You
helpful.
get a menu. They hand you a menu.
So they serve. They give you. There's a menu, and I've been to a steakhouse in Chicago once. You know, it was a high-end steakhouse, and so we talked about the menu. They give you a menu. Has anybody ever been to a steakhouse or a chop house or something
No
like
prices.
that? No prices. That's dangerous.
No prices.
Yeah. So when you go to McDonald's, you already know the menu. You know what's on the dollar menu, right? You know what's on there. You go into a fancy restaurant. They give you a menu. No price. You don't even know what's on the menu sometimes, right? It's like catch of the day, and you're like, "What's catch of the day?" And they're like, "Something you never heard of." And they're like, "How much does that cost?" Right? So, any other assumptions or perceptions about the differences in restaurants?
McDonald's gonna be cheaper.
It's cheaper, and so that says something about the clientele too, right? Anybody, you know, if you're rich, you can go to either one, but if you're not rich, you can only go to McDonald's. So if you go into McDonald's, what's the kind of clientele that you expect to see there? The kind of workers that you expect to see there? It would be, what's that?
Younger people.
Young people, no billionaires,
All right.
you know.
The manager.
The manager is not a billionaire.
I'm just joking.
So now, that sets the stage. Actually, no pun intended, but if you knew about Goffman, the world of the stage. Anyways, that's a joke only for another week. But to set the stage, I had you explain the differences in perceptions and assumptions. But now let's think about what if you flipped it up. When you go into McDonald's, how do you behave knowing these things? You said you're in a hurry. When you go to McDonald's,
You're gonna show that you're in a hurry.
You already know what you want.
you know what you want. You go in there.
Use manners.
What's that?
Less prone to use manners.
Yeah, because you're like, just give me what I want. And then they're mad at you, and you're mad back at them. And
Get mad if it take too long.
Yeah.
so
Yeah, you do expect a little spit.
They're mad.
Rude.
They're mad to be there, and you're mad to also be there. You're like, I mean, deep down, you're like, I don't want to be here. I'm only here because I'm in a hurry. I don't love cheeseburgers. Yeah, I would rather have a pulled pork sandwich from like some expensive restaurant or some lobster or something. But here I have to eat this cheeseburger that tastes like cardboard. That maybe the dude's spitting. So nobody. But then you go to the expensive restaurant, and you know how things are gonna go.
I guess it's right.
What if you walked into McDonald's and you expected these things that were from the expensive steakhouse?
You'll behave differently.
What if you walked in there and you were like, "Where's the greeter?" How would they react? What if you walked in and you said that to them? Where's the greeter at?
They probably think you're trying to be funny.
And then you walked up to the counter and you said, "What's on the menu today?" And they'd be like, "It's right there." And then you would say, "Do you have a catch of the day or a soup of the day?" And how are they going to respond to that?
Get to work.
They're like, "Are you?"
They probably think you're trying to be funny.
Yeah. What if you said, "Can I get a menu?"
I think I talked to the manager. I pass them off, but no, I don't talk to this person anymore. I used to work at McDonald's.
They
so I know.
assume, they expect for you to know that, considering
Yes,
that
they.
McDonald's.
So exactly, and that's actually going to be in the slideshow. There's a mutual expectation. It's not just you don't expect how they're going to behave, which you do, but then they expect how you're going to behave. So either one throws it off. So if you go and you act like a billionaire who wants a surf and turf steak catch of the day, they're going to be thrown back. But what if you walk into McDonald's and everybody's in a tux and somebody greets you, gives you a menu with no prices, sets you down at a table with the tablecloth, and there's like a fish aquarium, and they offer you wine. There's like, what would you do? Like,
I'll go somewhere else. Because if I'm in a hurry, I ain't got time for this.
Well, you freak out first, though, wouldn't you?
No.
You would not freak out.
If it happened at McDonald's,
If you walked into a Popeyes, somebody greets you, sits you down, pours you a glass of wine, and asks you if you want lobster, you would not freak out.
You feel like you're working or something.
You'd be looking for hidden cameras, right?
okay.
Be like, this is messed up. Yeah, it'd be like. So there's this thing where every day you walked in here, you expect the door to be unlocked, you expect me to show up, you expect us to have a 3-hour lecture, you go to McDonald's, everything you do expect. So at the end of that whole setup, and that's going to be what we're going to be talking about today, are we just basically robots? Are we just basically programmed to do all these things?
Yeah. To a certain extent.
How so? Like, how did we get programmed to do this? Like, why?
Start at the crib. It starts at home.
So your mom takes you to McDonald's, and now you want to go to McDonald's.
My
Yeah.
daughter know every time she drives past.
Yeah. That's
She already knows.
So she's the next generation.
You wouldn't
McDonald's.
you wouldn't know that, like, it's basically what you tend to pick up on, like, without somebody technically having to tell you. Like, you pick up on things through, like, observation. Like, say if I'm at home, if my mama always cooking and we go to McDonald's every once in a while, I feel like, oh, McDonald's is a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I only get it once in a while, so every time I go, I'm excited because the food is fast and it's good.
Then you'll be more prone to want home cooked meals versus McDonald's.
No, I would want McDonald's more if I only get it once in a while.
But you'll be so trained and so used to getting that home cooked meal. That's like my son.
Yeah,
He don't eat cereal. You know, most kids eat too. You can get up and make him cereals. He used to get pancakes, eggs, bacon, that kind of stuff in the morning. But if you get up and give him a bowl of cereal, he's looking like.
And then what's he gonna do when he has kids? If he has kids,
The same.
That's what he used to. When he go to other people's house,
And you say pancakes, eggs, and bacon, right? How many people here are raising their kids to eat tuna fish sandwiches for breakfast every morning? Like, get up, I'm gonna have a glass of prune juice and a tuna fish sandwich.
You know what? And if it was somebody that did that, believe it or not, their kids probably would eat that too.
Or either grow up and can't stand tuna fish. It's one of the two.
We think it's weird though, right? But like, I mean, a tuna fish sandwich, that's like a regular food, but all of a sudden we're thinking like, oh, if you had that every day for breakfast, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Just like if you walked into McDonald's and they try to give you a tuna fish sandwich, that's so crazy. So why are these things crazy? It's just a tuna fish sandwich, like.
Because it's not normal for you.
Why not?
Because that's not what you do.
Why don't we change that? Why don't we change it?
Tuna fish. They're compulsive. They're used to a certain routine, and when you get off that routine, it's like a shock to them.
But do you think? Yes. Now this is an important part. Do you think that we all just get up every morning, and we already talked about the family influence? Do we just get up every morning and we're like, what should I have for breakfast out of anything in the world? Or do we go to our friend's house, we see what they're having, we look at what our mom made, we go to church and we have a potluck and we see all the spread there, you know, and it's all like baked beans and sweet potatoes and chicken. Like nobody's throwing out some crazy food that we've never seen before. It's just all the same stuff. So we look at what we see. When we drive down, there's only one way that I can get here. I mean, I could take a couple of different rights and lefts, but I have to drive down Tittabawassee. So, like, what do I see? All the same restaurants. When I drive by exits, what do I see? McDonald's. So, like, I grow up, and I get on the bus, and they take me to school every day. I'm driving past the same McDonald's or the same restaurants. I drive past the same grocery store. So, because of, like you said, everything I see every single day, that added to my family, added to my other things that I see in life, that's going to shape me. Like, I'm not watching all those McDonald's going by going, there's something different. There's something, you know, like, I mean, like, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to get me some McDonald's. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to grow up. I'm going to be just like my mom. I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to die. Like, that's how. So we're all programmed like robots. You may not think that. You may think opposite, but that's one possibility. And I'm not saying we're all programmed like robots in this conspiracy theory sort of way. I'm talking specifically today about assumptions, perceptions, expectations, and behavior. If you go into a McDonald's and you assume something's going to happen, then you behave in that way. And the person on the other side of the counter assumes you're going to ask for something on the menu. They assume you're going to pay in a dollar bill. You assume that they're going to give you change. They assume you're going to move down. You assume they're going to give you a cup. You assume when you push it on a little thing, the Coke's going to come out. You assume if there's no ice or it's broken that you can ask them if they would fix it. You turn around, you look, you assume there's going to be tables there. So, like, everything we do is based on, like, assumptions. When I walk in here, I assume I assume you're all going to be here. You are. That the thing's going to work. It always does. If it breaks, I can call somebody. Every day on my way here, I call the public safety. I assume they're going to unlock the door for me. They do. There's all these things we just assume, and then we just go about our days like it's already pre-programmed. So, not this conspiracy theory or this you're all sheep sort of thing. You know, like, I'm not one of these type of lectures, but based on these things, you can form an argument that there's a lot of pre-programmed assumption, reaction, behave the same way based on how we copy the things that we see every day. The things that we see every day are based on where we live, our family, our neighborhood, our church, our school, our government, the social institutions that kind of shape our lives. So that's the introduction. Oh, I meant to also throw in there, I forgot, the whole build-up was your expectations and assumptions about this class, right? There's an assumption that I have when I give an assignment that you all are going to do it. And I also have an assumption based on experience, I should have wrote in here, that some of you aren't going to do it. Others of you are going to have technology problems. some people are going to drop the class. My assumption is that there are going to be about this number of empty seats on the third week. My assumption is some people are going to have dropped the class. In a couple weeks, my assumption is there's going to only be about half the seats full. My assumption is that about a quarter to a third of the students will fail the class, not because they did all the work, but because they literally don't turn in the final paper. And then all those assumptions get reinforced by the experience, the phenomena of the class. So I didn't assume those things the first time I taught a class, and then it started happening over and over. Habits forming, repeated behaviors. When I see those repeated behaviors over and over, that's how I begin to develop my assumptions and my expectations. Like you said, the daily things I see every day. Right. So I didn't just develop my own assumptions off my first class or before my first class. Like, it happened every time for 12 straight semesters, and then here we are. And my hypothesis is that it's going to happen again. And so I just, try to make my adjustments and that sort of thing. So that's me. You have, like we talked about the McDonald's thing. There's the customer and there's the worker. You all have certain assumptions and expectations too. Can you tell me some of those assumptions and expectations about the class that you have?
This class?
Yeah.
I assume to learn, and I expect to get an A because I work hard.
So yeah, you got this whole thing, like there's this deal that we have, this unwritten, well, sort of written on the syllabus rule that if I do the work, I'll get an A grade, and that's sort of negotiation process of do the work, get the grade. That's your expectation. You'd be very shocked if you did all the work, turn it all in, and you fail. You'd probably be shocked, right?
Yeah, I would.
Or conversely, you'd probably be just as shocked if you didn't turn anything in all semester and you got an A.
Right.
You'd also be like, whoa, cool, but that's crazy. It'd be a shock. So what are some other expectations or assumptions you got?
That you will explain homework.
Oh, actually, yeah.
If you give assignments like our essay to explain what you're doing,
Right,
and expect that we'll have a good grade if we understood your instructions.
Yeah, so to say that, to amplify that point, if I was to all of a sudden give a essay on Roman historical literature, and I give that to you, you look at it and go, this is not what we didn't learn this, and you didn't explain any of this, so how am I going to do this, right? So you expect some type of delivery system from me to prepare you for your assignments through an explanation and a preparation exchange, right? And at the same token, I expect that when I explain my stuff, that you'll absorb at least enough to like go forward and go through with that. Like my expectation is like, okay, if I prepare them for 16 weeks for the final project, I expect you to absorb at least, 2/3 of that, and then when you do the assignment, you'll at least have some, like you won't, when you do the assignment, you won't give me math problems. Like I have this idea like, okay, I even assume you know English, you can write, we'll work through that you can learn lessons, when I teach you how to do stuff, you'll learn, right? So you expect me to explain it, I expect you to do the work.
Right.
Yeah, this whole, any other assumptions, expectations?
That the class would be more open with each other.
Okay, you had an expectation that we would kind of be open. And where did you get that expectation?
Certain amount of time, somebody don't get the point.
Mm-hmm. So this is not like, it's not an online class. It's not a 750-person lecture, right? Because that, one of my first classes at Michigan State was, I walk in, 750-person lecture. And so one of my first assumptions is, well, first, I didn't know anybody. I'm probably not going to talk to anybody. There's no time to talk because all the guy does is talk to us. It's probably not going to be very open. But here it's more intimate setting. And also the subject matter is social studies. So, like, it's not like we're just doing lab. So your assumption is based on that. Any other expectations and assumptions? No? Okay, so that was just kind of in the wake of some of those emails I sent where I did, there's 20-some students, I think, in the class. I did expect more to have been done before today. Yeah. So when I looked at them, I think this morning, I think there were 8 done by this morning. The Elite 8. Yeah. So my assumption was that over half, maybe half would be done. And,
you can assume that we have computers too. I don't have access to a computer at home, so I have to literally come to the school and type it and send it.
Right. So that's a great point, because without getting too philosophical, that was your assumption. This is actually part of the actual article that I didn't put in there. He says assumption like 12 times in the same sentence. It's hard to follow it. Your assumption was that I assumed that you had a computer. So the more levels we add to it, the more gray it gets. And truthfully, and this is not part of the presentation, but the truth is, no, I don't actually assume that you have computers. Because I learned early on, especially teaching at Delta, it's way different than when I went to Cooley Law School. When I went to law school, every desk, laptop up. Every single one. In a class of about 125. Maybe one person didn't have a laptop because they thought they were so smart they didn't need one. Then I come to Delta, and so my first semester, there were like no laptops. And I was like, okay, people just don't like to carry their laptop. You know, that second semester, I was like, maybe they don't have them. So at this point, I'm kind of aware that very few people, in fact, my last semester, I don't think anybody had a laptop. And then one guy got his laptop stolen, so that means pretty much nobody. So that was actually a misperception. So it's interesting because you behave based on that assumption, and then it could actually be wrong. So that's part of the presentation as well, but it's this thing where, like, you think about this and how I was asking you, are we all pre-programmed robots? And then sort of one response could be, yeah, but who cares? I'll just go to McDonald's. I like it. I like the cheeseburgers. I like the sauce. I like Taco Bell, whatever. I'm going to die happy. But then, if you think deeper into it, and you think, well, you're basing your life off assumptions that may actually be untrue. And so when you start to peel back the layers of the onion and look at it and go, okay, this portion of my prior thought might not be as true as I thought it was. And if you try to fill in those gaps with knowledge, I think you have a better existence. If you just float by on these assumptions, which might be wrong, it's a bad ending. It's a bad ending. Trust me on that. I can only assume it's a bad ending. Yeah. So you always have to seek out the truth and the knowledge and grow that route. Now, all that being said, assumptions, perceptions, expectations, behavior, hypotheses, and interaction is built into this lecture. Our theorists today are Garfinkel. He refers to Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant is a philosopher. I put him smaller because he would be the least person that you would have to know. I really liked Kant a lot. In my undergrad, I studied philosophy and ethics. He talks about the categorical imperative, but you don't have to know any of that, so I put it so small. Alfred Schutz, I don't really know much about him, but Garfinkel refers to him. Michel Foucault, a cool guy. And then Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As you know, his day was yesterday. And there's me, the lecture. So there are 20 slides. Each one's supposed to take about 5 minutes. That's about 2 hours of material. We'll take a break halfway through. There is a in-class exercise, which we'll probably do in the second half. Has to happen in the second half, the way things are set up. Sounds familiar, inside and out. Last week, we talked a lot about the whole catchphrase, nature versus nurture. We talked about the psychological versus the social. We talked about the difference between what's in your head versus what's out in the world. So if you get up, if you're born on a desert island and you've never seen another human being, there's probably not a chance that in your head you will instantly develop a concept of McDonald's, and when they put you on solid ground, you'll be looking around like, there's this thing I thought of, it's called McDonald's, I want a cheeseburger right now. Like, so there's this cognitive development in your head, which is your psyche, your psychology, inside yourself. And then there are other things that you learn on the outside. That bus window when you're going to school every day, that you see that McDonald's, now you know that the McDonald's is there. For Kant, morals, ethics, moral behavior inside is a mystery. So he was, as I mentioned, a philosopher. So when I say Kant is thinking about morals developing inside us, where inside us does he think that they develop? Where do our morals come from? Kant believes that the morals within us. So where would that? Where is our conscience? Our brains. So Kant is this philosopher that's saying that our morals come from a psychological process that we develop within our brain. Now, I'm way oversimplifying. We just kind of figured it out. Sociologists, on the other hand, believe that the moral order without, which is another way of saying outside, is a technical mystery. We study this mystery about moral order outside of ourselves. So for sociologists, we rarely look where?
Within.
Which means what?
Yes. We look at the
inside our brain, inside our conscience. We rarely look in there, and sociologists look more where?
With behaviors.
Outside the window, right? So we look out that bus window and we say, what's going on out there? We look out the classroom, what's going on out there? You know. So Kant, this philosopher, you're in a philosophy class, you get all wrapped up inside your head. You know, it's like, whoa, what's going on? The world doesn't even exist, you know. And sociologists are more like, I see you, I'm going to watch what you do, right, and I'm going to just kind of look at that, right, examine that. So again, this should sound familiar. This is just a replay of last week, but through Garfinkel's article that this presentation is based off of. This is a quote from the Garfinkel article. It's, in fact, the first sentence of the article. So visually made this little representation of, you have varying or differing perspectives on how the world works. You have people that think everything is within the mind. You know, philosophically, you could think, oh, you all don't exist unless I think that you exist. You know, like, if I was in a coma right here, you wouldn't exist because I wouldn't know that you existed, right? That's the philosopher, right? So some people just think everything is all in the mind. Maybe I'm dreaming, you know, like, I don't know, there's a movie, Inception, I think. I didn't even understand it. Maybe we're all just dreaming. Maybe the world is, maybe I'm the only one that even exists, and you're all just my little thing coming up. So inside the mind, and that really is for the philosopher, for the psychologist to explain. The philosopher is going to be more this hokey pokey, and you know, I say hokey pokey not in a derogatory way because I myself study philosophy, but it's this whole idea of like I was just saying, like, do you even exist? Do I even exist? What is green? Is green just our perception? No, that's right. The psychologist is going to then kind of take your brain and explain that your behavior is based on the chemical reactions in your brain, and that we have wars because our brain chemicals tell us to have wars, and you know, other people are peaceful because their brains tell them to be peaceful. So you keep going around the spectrum, and then you get to the sociologist who would say we have wars because people form in groups, in group power struggle against another group. And there has to be some sort of inequality and fight for
power.
Yeah, this is all the sociologists think. So coming full circle, sociologists look at outside in society. So a sociologist would look at the interaction between two people, whereas the philosopher and the psychologist more just want to look at your brain, or that's how they think our experiences are based on kind of chemical reactions in the brain. I'm way oversimplifying that, but this gives you a great perspective if you can kind of understand that difference. So when you write your papers, you're not telling me what you think or what your opinion is. You're going to tell me what you see and how you can form a theory based on what you see and experience, the phenomenon of your experience. See the difference there? If we were in a philosophy class, I'd probably just say, just write me a paper on what you think and sort of explain to me how you came up with those ideas, right? But in a sociology class, it's not just what you think in your head, your opinion. You have to tell me where you got your opinions, and it's from what you see out in the world. And so you tell me what you see out in the world, starting from now moving forward, not what you saw growing up, because that's just too limited of a scope. You want to repeat that behavior. Like I said, if I just focused on my first semester of teaching, I would have a skewed perspective of what teaching is about. But I watched for repeated behavior over and over, and then I put that all as aggregated data, and that was now my perception. So if you just base your perceptions on your family growing up, it's going to be a weak, bad paper. Because I don't want to know about the study of your particular family. I want to know about 20,000 families. You see what I mean? Like I want to have a bigger impact on that. If you make a study based on your family, the only people that are going to care about it is your family. So you need to do a bigger paper about society, right? American society or Saginaw or Delta or whatever group or population you decide to study. We'll talk more about that later, the difference between population and samples. So assumptions, perceptions, expectations, and behavior. Assumptions, you might know from science class, are kind of vocabulary where it would be hypotheses. That's an educated guess, right? Your hypothesis, that's singular. Your hypotheses, that's plural hypothesis. Formed through your experiences. So as we already talked about, I'm driving to school on the bus and I see restaurants. That's my experience. And so I'm gonna sort of think, these are restaurants. This is the scope of American restaurants. I had no idea that Popeyes existed till it came to Lansing. I had no idea that Tim Hortons existed till it came to Lansing when I was growing up, because these things didn't used to exist. But I formed, my ideas about the world through my experiences. And hypotheses are really, you might even call a stereotype a hypothesis. So if you think certain people are lazy, or you think rich people are smarter, if you think rich people are jerks, or if you think people on welfare don't work as hard, that is a stereotype, but it's also a hypothesis. It's your guess based on your experience. My assumption, an assumption, is that somebody that develops a stereotype, again, they're not just born on a desert island, right? They don't just get put back on the mainland thinking, yeah, I just think all of a sudden I'm, racist or something like that. Like, they don't just all of a sudden, if they've never met another human being, they don't just all of a sudden write a 12-page paper on racism. You have to be raised, or you have to have some type of experience that then leads to perhaps your racism. That's just an example. Garfinkel says, the member of the society uses background expectancies as a scheme of interpretation. So background, expectancy, and experience. When you go into a McDonald's, you expect something. When you walk into Walmart, you expect that a pair of shoes doesn't cost $400.
Because you've been there before.
Exactly. The background experiences, the background expectancy, exactly, because you've been there before. Exactly right. Repeated behavior. So how can we discuss our preconceived notions in a civil manner? If we have different backgrounds and different expectancies, if I'm like a billionaire, right, and I think that McDonald's is terrible, and you go, or you said Popeyes, do you like Popeyes? Mm-hmm. You think it's good?
Yeah.
So if I think it's terrible,
That's your opinion.
And you think it's good, and that's my opinion. You think it's great. How do we talk about this in a civil manner?
We don't. I just don't offer you no chicken.
Oh, no. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about it. Because if we don't talk about it, everything throughout history, every social injustice, every wrong, never would have got fixed unless we talk about it. So how do we talk about this stuff? You love Popeyes. I think it's disgusting. How are we going to talk about it?
We'll talk about it.
You said take a bite? That's exactly right.
Because I actually, yeah, I asked me why I do like it.
Don't knock until you try it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would say to me, how do you know that Popeyes is gross?
Right.
Have you ever tried it? And I'll go, no, I never have. So you give me a bite. I take one bite, and I bit into some nasty dark meat or something like that. And I spit it out, and I go, this is disgusting. So what? Do we just stop there, and then like we go home and we hate each other, or what do we do?
No, try it again.
Try it again, right. So you give me a drumstick, I bite into the bone, I break my tooth off, and I go, this is stupid, I told you Popeyes suck. You go,
try another one.
Try this one, and try this biscuit with honey on it, and eat these mashed potatoes with gravy, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get this. So in other words, you don't just go, so first you talk about it, then you test it out. You said take a bite, test it out, but then you don't just test it once, you test it over and over, and you repeat it over and over. That's why I was talking about the one family thing. You can't just take your family and tell me that that's how the world works. You have to do it repeatedly, over and over and over. You give me one bite, I have to take 100 bites.
Right.
I go to one Popeyes, and it's the one that this dude works at that just does not know how to work the fryer, and all of that food is terrible, even though I had 100 pieces of chicken.
A different Popeyes.
Exactly. Different Popeyes, a different city, different menu items, so you go about and you test it. And you talk about this in a way that you try to show me your perspective. I try to explain my perspective of why I don't, think it's good. And then we just come at each other with factual evidence. We don't just talk about it. Oh, Popeyes is good. I love it. It's so great. Like, how far is that going to get us? No, we come with factual evidence. Here's the chicken. Eat it. You don't like it? I'll take it over here. Here's some more chicken. More facts, more facts, more facts. So it's the same thing when I'm reading your papers. If you just keep telling me about what you think and your experience growing up, oh my gosh, this, that, this is my mom, this, my brother, I'll be like, who cares? I want facts over and over. New, fresh facts about repeated events and behaviors that can back up and support your point. That's how we discuss things in a civil manner. Garfinkel talked about the attitude of daily life. I actually kind of misspoke. He talked about it only because Alfred Schutz talked about it. So Garfinkel refers to Alfred Schutz's descriptions of attitudes of daily life. As sociologists, we examine the world known in common and take it for granted. This is a sort of academic way to say we examine the world that we all share. These are shared experiences. You're here, I'm here. When we go to McDonald's, the customer's there, the worker's there, the manager's there, and the millionaire that owns McDonald's is sort of there in spirit. But all these things we take for granted, I think a lot of times, I think this will resonate with you. When you go to McDonald's and you order something and they give you attitude, a lot of times,
leave.
Well, we think that it's their bad attitude. It's like, why does this person have to be a jerk? Why do they have to behave like this? Like, we take these things for granted. Like, this whole thing, like, okay, society has screwed this person. Okay, they don't have health insurance and they have a headache. They don't want to be there, and their boyfriend, who's the father of their kid, they just caught him cheating last week, and now they're going to break up, and then their kid actually keeps skipping school or whatever. So all of a sudden, all these things that we took for granted, that we had just focused and centralized on this person's behavior, we need to start understanding these things. We need to start understanding that if one group of people is always less educated, more angry, more apt to fail out of this class, more of a procrastinator, or another, conversely, that's all negative stuff. Conversely, if another group is more hard workers, more educated, more rich, we have to figure out why this occurs. All these things we take for granted that we just think, oh, because their mom and dad's rich, they don't have to work. We take all these things for granted. We have all these stereotypes. No, we have to study. We have these common experiences. I see you, you see me. We go to the store, we see whoever. We see the people on TV, whatever. So we have to know the world through those common shared experiences, and we have to look at the things that we've taken for granted. So we don't want to study things that we already know, okay? I'm human, I breathe, you know, whatever. We have to look next level, okay? So again, sociologists examine the world that we know already. We see it, I see this, but things that we take for granted. Why 8 people turn in the assignment in 1 week? You know, like, I don't just go back to my office and go, because they're all lazy. You know, like, I have to think of these things that people don't think about. And I have to try to solve that problem. Like, my goal is to have everybody in my class go to Harvard and become billionaires, right?
What about those that probably did the paper but just didn't turn it in because you said it was doing the
Yeah, I'm looking at all those things. And a weaker person, a lesser person, is going to just continue to take all that stuff for granted. And if you're going to continue to take stuff for granted, then you don't belong in this class. Like, if you think the world's all figured out and solved, and yada yada, then just, you don't belong here. Like, this is what we're studying. We're looking to that second level stuff. So I'm looking at all that stuff, to the point of being crazy about it. And I want you to look at this stuff too. This is why we're here. Why is it important? Because if you just take all this stuff for granted, if you just never think about these things, if you just keep going to McDonald's every day, robot. You're just totally a robot. You have no brain, and that's it. You're done. Your life's over. You have lived a life of automation. And it's not part of my intended lecture, but there are potential reasons based on certain things that you would have taken for granted. Our industrialized complex in America, so we have this thing called, you know, the assembly line. So Henry Ford makes up an assembly line that cranks out cars in a pattern, develops the 9-to-5 work day. So we have a whole system that's set up that you go in, you eat breakfast. Like, the breakfast is not, somebody didn't just invent that. It was like the carbs and the protein, the meats that were available. Everyone gets up at 8 a.m. and they eat that same stuff. Kellogg's, that's based out of Battle Creek, they developed the cereals based on the grain. So cereal didn't just get randomly invented. It was because Kellogg's mass-produced it, sold it to the masses. So then they developed it so that the kids would get up. And you all know why we have summer vacation for the farms. You all know why we work a 9-to-5 work day. And they go to the factories, whistle blows, the same whistle that would blow is the bell that rings in K-12 schools right now. We get out, and then the kids would go home to the mom that cooked them dinner, and then the dad would come. So it's all pre-programmed. If we just continue to operate like that, we're all robots. We got to think next level. We just gotta keep going.
Like, what about now? Like, you know, both parents in the household work. Like, my aunt and uncle situation, both of them are never home, so my cousin stays with my grandparents like every day. Mm-hmm. My grandparents take him to school, pick him up, you know, and then he learns by like what they do. But in the same manner, my grandparents can't even really be his parent because they don't want, like, my grandma doesn't want him to think that she's a mean grandma. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't discipline him, but now he's out of control. Mm-hmm. So it's like.
So you got to look at that, and like, you know, so we have these stereotypes about the 1950s of the domesticated wife and the hardworking dad and whatever, all this stuff. So that was culturally the norm. So you got to look at your situation, which is not the norm right now, and you got to look at, and you got to go, how's he going to turn out? Not just him, but 1,000 hymns that live with their grandparents or whatever. And if that was everybody in America, how would we all turn out? Should that be the norm? Should that replace the two-parent system? You know, so when we talk about something, even to grandparents as parents, homosexual parents, we have to examine it and go, we can't just say that gay parents are bad. We have to look at the kids that come out of those relationships and go, okay, are they successful, or do they grow up to be murderers? Like, how is this all going to play out? So when you make a decision on like gay marriage legally, they don't just hopefully don't just do it based on some random wacky theory that they have. They look at the data and they see how it all plays out. So in your situation, if that experience drives you, you can't just write about your one experience. You have to replicate over and over. So you'd have to look at 1,000 families just like that and say, okay, did all 1,000 kids grow up to be in prison? If so, why? Did 80% of them grow up to be geniuses? If so, why? You just kind of replicate that over and over. And figure out the benefits or the detriment to society. So how do we study these phenomena? Repeatedly, that's one thing. But there's a duality here in the social sciences, the way that we examine, or the way we test our hypotheses, the way we do our studies. And these are your big vocab words for the day. Quantitative and qualitative. Does anybody here already know the distinction there? Go ahead.
Quantitative is like quantity, qualitative is like quality too.
Yes. So what you have is the N can tip you off. And also the fact that it has quantity based in there, right? So the N always tips me off, numbers. So when you're talking about quantitative analysis, you're talking about numbers. And there will be a class at the college or in high school, starts with an S. That would be basically this, what you would learn there. What is that? Stats. Yes, stats. If you want to do statistical research, you're going to be a quantitative researcher, a quantitative analyst. So if you were looking at kids raised by their grandparents, and you wanted to just find something out about them, give me an example of a quantitative analysis you can do.
43% of them go on to be involved in like crime.
Okay, so 43%, which is a stat, you know, a number, go wind up being criminals. So that's good, first level thought. It's a great starting point. Criminal, is that a number? How can we make it a number? Because quantitative analysis, we want all numbers. You can't put criminal into an equation unless you turn it into a number, right? Algebra, right? So how do we turn that into a number?
You were to say like 43% of those people spend 10 or more years in jail.
Years in jail is one. Number of offenses. Number of arrests. And there's just a couple, right? So you could have, this could be your whole equation. So if you say 43% are likely to be criminals, I would say, well, what do you mean by a criminal? You can't still be criminal. You know, like, one time when I was 15, I downloaded a song off Napster. Am I a criminal, right? Well, maybe. But I need to know how you define criminal in your paper. And you would say, you say it's right in your first page of your paper. I define criminal as having spent 6 months in jail or more, been convicted of at least 2 offenses, and had at least 3 number of arrests at 3. So then you would say 43% of those children ended up meeting that standard. Other quantitative measures, because if we talk about like people being smart, so we say, I'm going to study rich people being smart. There's an easy one, right? How do we quantify that? Rich people and smart. Smartness, it could be IQ scores. It could be grade of education, right? I've had like 20 years of education. And then when I say rich, what is that?
People make the same amount of money.
Income. Yep. And there are, and now I didn't even plan this, so there are two ways to look at income. You can do the basic, I don't know what it's called off the top of my head, it wasn't part of this lecture, but there's a straight scale of you just like, everybody tells me their income, and I just like make some average out of it, you know, like that. Or you can categorize it, right? So you can say, what's your income? And you just tell me the straight number, and then I just put that all into an equation and average it out or whatever. Or I can say, do you make between 10 and 20,000? Do you make, or do you make between 20 and 50? And you categorize them like that. Okay, so that's just ways of categorizing, but that's not part of this presentation. Get off the tangent. Qualitative though, not numbers. So what is it?
Words.
Words. And the L tips me off there. Remember the N tips me off for numbers. L tips me off for qualitative. And why would the L tip me?
You know what you're talking about. Like if you got
Talking, words, what starts with an L?
Literature.
Literature, that's one, yeah. And language. I always think language. I think talk. Literature is also good. So when you're looking at words, literature, language, talking, descriptions of that sort, that would be qualitative. So if you were talking about criminals, rich people, smart people, how would you do that in qualitative? If I'm not asking you the dollar value of your paycheck, what might I do to study you qualitative?
Houses.
So how would I do that? Would I put that? Would I do a survey?
the people with the same type of job. We look at the people with the same type of job.
How do I look at them? Do I give them a survey?
You could.
Do I look at census data? How am I going to do this with language?
Person owning a house.
I asked them. So this is a harder one to think about. It's pretty easy to do stats, right? Just like make an equation, right? A plus B equals C. So how am I going to find out about these families if they become criminals? I could watch them. I could ask them. I could talk to them. Do interviews. I could videotape them. Watch them. Okay? So believe it or not, qualitative analysis involves these sorts of things. Analyzing words, literature, like literally, no pun intended, looking at the words and recording how many times you have a conversation with one of these kids and you record how many times they say guns, drugs, and alcohol or something. Or if they didn't say those three words, you would then categorize. If they say weapon, shooting, video game, violent, I'll consider that the gun. So just by talking to somebody, you can describe their behavior through words, whereas quantitatively, you describe their behavior through numbers. So quantitative is going to be your salary is $50,000 a year. Qualitative is going to be your rich or middle class. Garfinkel says, common understandings cannot possibly consist of measured amounts of shared agreement among persons on certain topics. So what do you think Garfinkel would do if this is his quote? He says that he can't describe things based on measured amounts. So what does he mean by that?
You can't put a number on people's.
You can't measure. He doesn't like measuring stuff. He says when I look at somebody, I don't see a rule. When I look at you, when you stand up and I look at you, I don't see a ruler next to you. You know, he's obviously never been to a 7-Eleven. He says when I look at you, I see you as tall or short, right? He's like, I'm not looking at you going 5'4", 5'3", 5'6", 5'10". He's on my one. Tall, short, medium, medium, tall, short, medium. He doesn't think that you can measure amounts about certain things. Okay, I'm way oversimplifying that, but it speaks to what. Oh, that's not. It speaks to what he's talking about. I said, oh, I'm amusing myself. So yeah, he was not a quantitative guy. So how did he do a study qualitatively? He thought conversation was important. Okay, he didn't go get census data and say, okay, of all these 1,000 kids that came out of 2 grandparent homes, how many have been spent a year in jail and had 3 arrests? He wanted to talk to people. He thought conversation was important. But if you had a conversation without assumptions, how could you come to any conclusions? If I went, okay, if I came in here the first day and we never talked about my teaching style, you know, like how would you ever know how to perform? Some of you didn't turn in, oh, here's a grade. You didn't get the assignment in the right way today on time, right? You knew, though, that you could come up and talk to me. There was some type of assumption. If you didn't know anything about me, would you have been as comfortable to come up to me? Or did you feel more comfortable because you spent 2 weeks with me and you kind of know how I operate? Right, so you have a conversation, and because you know something about the background of me, that's how you operate. You have assumptions. So that proves his theory that people's conversations, even though we're just talking words, I'm saying stuff to you. Number one, I assume you know English, you know, and you're responding to me because you think I'm not going to just whip a marker at you for saying something stupid or something like that. We've already formed a knowledge about each other. So that's Garfinkel's theory. Conversation is important, not just because of the words coming out of my mouth, but because of everything else that's going on in the class. The way all of us are performing. We're all part of the whole picture. Okay? Even the people that sleep during class are part of this picture. Right? You see how I respond to them, and that forms an idea of yours about me. So if we just talked over email, if this was an online class, do you ever get to know your online teachers? You ever taken an online class? I don't even know what my online teachers look like. So you got to know something. It's not just the words. You got to watch the behavior. So conversation is important for 2 reasons: the words and also the knowledge outside of the words. Okay. Garfinkel is interested in conversation. So his experiment, what he did in this article that I based this presentation on was he had students go home and talk to their family as if they were an outsider. So as I've been saying, when you go into a McDonald's, you behave like the robot you're supposed to behave. Like everyone knows how everyone's going to behave. So in this case, he had his students go home and talk to their families as if they were somebody different. Okay? So when you go home, you said you have a daughter?
Yeah.
When you go home, how do you interact?
They were my cartoons were
Okay.
Barbies.
So you know her name, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you walked in and you just kind of, she'd be like, "Daddy, what are you doing?" And you're like, "I'm sorry," and you are like, "What does she do?" She'd freak out, right?
Yeah.
And if you did, that'd be to a kid, but and if you did that to an adult too, like, if I came in here and I was like, "Okay, so what am I supposed to do?"
You too.
You guys would be like, "Did you get hit in the head?" And I'd be like, "And what? Where are we?"
I think you were hot.
Yeah, right? You'd be like, "This guy is crazy." And hot, right? How would you test to see if I was high, though? It's part of it.
You know, I have some blade.
Exactly. It's important. You have to look beyond it, right? Because I could just be acting, right? And in this case, these students were. They were acting. They go home, and they were pretending to be somebody kind of that they're not. Because, again, all of our life's behaviors is you're that age, you're this gender, I'm here, I have the role, I'm playing the role just like an actor of the professor, and you're playing the role of the students. If you flip the script, if you have the students go home and you behave in a way that you're not supposed to, everything changes, right? So how would your family or friends react if you acted unlike your usual self?
My mom would probably tell me, "Girl, get the hell up out my face."
You know what's funny? I do that to my son all the time. They run up to me and be like, "Mama," and I say, "I'm not your mother." He's like, "Your name's Stephanie," you know. But then he'll just run away and then come back, and I just keep doing it. But I don't know what it do to him, but I do it.
See, and it's why it makes my kids mad when I act like that. Because they know that I'm their mother, but when you sit there and act like you're not, they just get mad because they can't understand that you're.
Because they're programmed, right? They can't understand it. There's this conflict. They're already programmed. What if a cop pulls you over and you had 2 pounds of weed in your trunk, and he says, "Get out of the car," and you go, "Okay," and he walks around and says, "Open the trunk," and you open it up. There's 2 pounds of weed. And he goes,
"Well, where did that come from?"
No, he doesn't even say that. He just goes, "Well, let's break this open. I got some papers in my car." That's not going to happen, right? Because he has to perform his role. Right? So this is the whole point of Garfinkel's experiment and his whole theory. It's this whole idea everybody is playing their role in Goffman. Irving Goffman talks a lot more about this as well. Everybody's playing their role in society. The cop would never do that because he has to live up to his role. As a parent, you play with your daughter and you give her a bath and you know her name and you you teach your kids lessons, and the cop arrests you because of the marijuana, and I'm up here telling you, I'm teaching you, and if I don't teach you, you freak out if I don't tell you the right instructions. So we're all playing a role.
But if you don't play a role, it's consequences. Sometimes.
And that's called being deviant. If you don't do what's normal, you're being deviant. And criminals are deviant because if they don't play their role of being an obedient American, there's consequences.
So you said you don't lose a law?
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, that's gonna be a dumb question, but can like animals act like that, like we do? Because like my dog, okay, she's like my best friend. You know, she's been my baby since she came to my house. And just over the summer, I bought a laptop. And she knows that whenever I sit on the couch, she sits on my lap. Well, now I have a laptop, and if it's there, she lays on top of the laptop because she does not like it, or she'll get mad at me and, you know, go do something else, try to get my attention some other way. And I was just wondering if you think that they act in the same way, like, you know, the kids would, if you're like, "Oh, I'm not your mom."
Okay, so that's a great question, and it definitely ties into his question about no laws. Okay, the only species on Earth that has laws are humans, right? And that makes us
Robots.
robots or a civil society. Or a robot. I didn't say that. And you said maybe I don't like laws, but what's the one thing that separates us from animals? That we have laws. Okay? If we got rid of all of our laws, we would not be civil anymore. We would not have a society. It would be anarchy, and we would be just like animals, right? So this is a very important distinction. I'm glad you brought it up. You all are brilliant. You don't even know it. This is something I've taught all these semesters of Intro to Soc, but I've never had this portion of conversation, which is the dog's behavior is following what you think are like rules, right? But it's really just learned behavior. And learned behavior is really deep too. Learned behavior, hey, is it different or the same as this? Right? Okay, so we can't murder someone because the laws say that we can't do drugs because laws say we can't, whatever. Learned behavior would be like, well, if you went and killed somebody, like she said, negative consequences. Like in the hood, like if I go kill somebody, this happened in Flint, and I hate to say it like this, but I mean Flint, it makes me completely sad. It's basically fuels my fire. But in Flint, within the past couple of weeks, there was a murder, and there was a funeral.
And somebody got killed at the funeral.
They went for retribution and killed somebody at the funeral. So it's the sort of thing like that is in Flint. That is no real law. It's a law of the street. And this is now we're talking like grad level sociology, right? Is that the law says you can't go murder that guy in the funeral. That's what the law says. But the rule of the street says, or in that guy's mind, that's what you do. So, different cultures have different laws, and whether that's where it gets kind of fuzzy, and that's literally what grad school level thinking is. Okay, we have laws, but then is that guy's behavior by killing that guy in the funeral home the law of the street, or is it a learned behavior? Because like, isn't a law a system of rules to keep order? Like we have laws because like if we didn't have law, we'd have to keep order. So that sort of quote unquote law of the street. He didn't write a book of laws like, oh, if you snitch, I'm going to kill you in a funeral. That's code 25.
It could be unspoken. Unspoken.
It could be a learned behavior though.
But then you also argue that animals, they have a hierarchy system. They have, like, monkeys, take for instance, they have a dominant monkey who rules over the rest of the monkeys. So you can argue that.
Right, and lions have like pack leaders, and then you talk about also the female mammals or whatever, nurture and nurse. So we can draw parallels. But this is why sociology exists. This is why I can't stand looking back at history and just like try to memorize facts. It's like we have to move forward and we have to talk about these types of systems. And the whole idea of like, we could talk about the whole philosophy of law, but it's like, no, like we're now cutting edge. Let's talk about the guy that shot the funeral home. Is he doing laws? Did he make up his own laws? You want to break it down to animalistic behavior? That would be sort of the church.
No.
Yeah, right. It was at the church.
It's like that.
Yeah.
That was
Well, not no.
that was
You could do your theory there. I mean, for sure. Yeah, like that's totally sociological. It's to talk about the shooting and how it happened at a church and how people don't respect the church anymore and all that stuff. That would be your thing. But
it's just basically like if you said whenever I catch, say if me and you don't like each other, and I'm gonna kill you. Whenever I catch you, ain't no boundaries like, oh, if I catch you at church, I'm not gonna shoot at you. Or if I catch you at the grocery store, I'm not gonna shoot at you. It's wherever I catch you, it just so happen at the church. Mm-hmm. That's why I seen you, and that's why I got you, because I might not see you again.
That goes back to that was because it's rules. Streets still have rules. You know what I mean? I understand that wherever I catch you, and I know, and this comes from experience being around a lot of street guys. I mean, it was boundaries, as far as kids, you might get a pass. With your mommy, you might get a pass. But that's the devil.
I ain't never.
Right.
A lot. Right. Because, like, when it comes to something like that, if, you shoot me up, I don't care if it's you walking your grandma across the street. I'm going to get you back. Because that's what you, in a sense, by you being involved in like a game or whatever else, you know the rules, and no one has to tell you this because, like you said, it's learned. So if you know that you're gonna do this, you know the consequences that's gonna come behind it, and that calls for putting your family at risk to be in danger.
It's like killing you is what I want. If I kill your grandma, it's like a consolation prize.
Right.
And then what's the ultimate prize for you? You go to jail.
You go to jail, or somebody come and kill you.
Gonna get killed, or your mama and your grandma, and your sister and brother, and everybody else.
So this is the whole conundrum.
The cycle keeps going.
Yeah, it's just like, and this is the whole thing in my head. Is like, yeah, I don't like laws. I can't say, like, I don't want, when a police officer opens my trunk and sees my 2 pounds of weed that I keep, I don't want to go to jail because I do not like laws. And when I was 15 and I downloaded a song off of Napster, I did not want to go to jail. I think that's, I don't like laws. I dropped out of law school. I can't take laws. But at the same time, as much as and I don't like boundaries either. I don't like a wall between us and Mexico. You know, I don't like that division. We should all share, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm a big hippie. But then what happens is, as soon as I preach all this stuff out of my mouth, and I go, don't listen to laws, don't obey laws, then what happens is some guy who has 2 pounds of weed steals it from another guy, and then goes and shoots the guy that shot his brother in a church. And then all of a sudden I'm standing back like, okay, so we give this group and they just behave with no laws, and this is what happens. People shoot people in churches. Like, so we all have to figure out how's it going to work. We have to figure out how's it going to work, and that's why we're not done as sociologists. Like, it's not working. It's broken. Whether you think it's the devil, or you think it's a problem with laws, or you think it's drugs, or you think it's grandmas and grandpas raising kids, or whatever you think it is, we have to figure it out. Because until we can go a year in Flint without 66 murders and people shooting people in churches, we're not done. We're not done, okay? I'm not done. So we gotta work on this. Okay, so it's a perfect time for a break. We'll get a long one. Let's take 20 even, and we'll come back at 1:45. I'm gonna get a coffee, and we'll pick up this conversation as a perfect time for the break. All right. Thanks for that. That was a great discussion.
Now, can we get paid?
You want to get paid for being here?
Oh, okay.
Is that your question?
No, for giving you our insight.
You want me to pay you? It pertains to our subject matter in tonight's lecture. So you might think that I'll be going on a rant about expectations and this and that all the emails that I send are disconnected. But if you really pay close attention, you'll find the connections there. And the reasons for my emails and the reasons for my rants to start the class are actually all entwined. And so if you can grasp those connections and understand those connections, then you have a good sense of what sociology is. So I'm going to write a couple things up on the board, and assumptions, perceptions, and expectations.
Oh, shoot.
And behavior. Okay, so this is going to play a part into tonight's discussion. Assumptions, perceptions, expectations, and behavior. And I was thinking of 2 examples on my drive in here. You know I drive 2 hours here, so I have a lot of time to think and listen to my Pandora station and my podcast. But I came up with 2 examples that might strike a chord with you. And the first example is the, let me paint this picture. McDonald's, you all aware of McDonald's is? And Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Have you ever heard of that? Big fancy steakhouse, or what's the most fancy restaurant that you can think of?
Buffalo
Good, funny. Let's just say a very fancy steakhouse at McDonald's. Now, remember what we're talking about: assumptions, perceptions, expectations, and behavior. When you go to McDonald's, what are some of your assumptions when you walk in the door to McDonald's? I could lead you, but I'm sure you have some assumptions.
That you're going to get your food fast?
Fast. McDonald's is fast. What else? Okay.
Well, supposedly I do.
Fast and inconsistent. Not all of them. That means inconsistent. So when you walk in, inconsistent, maybe you're not sure if it's going to be fast or not. What else are some assumptions when you walk into McDonald's?
No, I'm Tuesdays and here. And now I'm in the morning. And then it's back in the club.
You didn't check it out?
Told me.
Hey, I just wondered if it was working. I always assume it is.
I was trying to do it, but it wasn't working.
Okay. Try. Can you get the lights for me? Not bad. 11 and a half minutes. The funny thing about coming here to Delta is having to set up all my own equipment. At every other school that I teach at, it's all set up. So I just walk in, turn it on, and log in. So it's funny because it adds that extra little bit onto the beginning of the class, but it allows me then to play Tupac. So there you go. But then Tupac fades out as the stream goes live because, as we discussed, I can't have any copyrighted material on the live broadcast, the YouTube recordings. But as we also discussed, some of this material may be copyrighted by you or the school or myself. But the question is still who owns it. We don't know. But we haven't been rated yet, so that's outstanding. I wanted to start class off by talking a little bit about the expectations of the course, not as it pertains to, well, a little bit as it pertains to you and to the class, but so much so that it explain.
Opposite when you say talking about inconsistent, sometimes it'll be like, you know, food be made fresh, and sometimes you'll get a cold burger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fresh, maybe cold, fast, maybe slow. What else?
Unhealthy.
It's unhealthy. So when you go in there,
You know this. What
you know what you're gonna get. You know what's on the menu. When you walk into McDonald's, you say unhealthy. You don't look up at the menu and go, hey, where's the fruit salad? I don't get this. Where's the sushi? Where's the stir fry? You don't like that. Doesn't. You already know. You have a preconceived notion.
I'm at McDonald's. I'm in a hurry.
So speaking of your behavior, you're in a hurry. And so the decision that you make to go to McDonald's sometimes based on how much of a hurry that you're in.
All right.
You don't feel like cooking. So conversely, let's talk about the super fancy steakhouse. We'll call it Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It's a really fancy one. Actually, it's not technically a chain, but there are a couple of them. I believe there's one in Chicago if you ever want to go. So if you go into a super fancy steakhouse, who's ever been to a really fancy restaurant? Give me some. When you walk in the door.
Good service.
So there's going to be good service. Can you explain? What does that mean, good service?
They greet you.
Like,
so they're happy to see you.
right.
You walk in the door and they're like,
They want to know what I need.
what do you need? I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Okay, you walk into McDonald's. What do you see? Hey, I'm here. What do they do?
They might not even pay no attention to it when you walk in.
Shit,
Or
you
if
know, wait and look at the menu.
Or if you're like me, and you're like, you know, when I was in college and I worked at a Jimmy John's, like, people would walk. We open at 10 a.m. And you know, that's hard to get up that early. And then I'd get there. Oh, I don't want to be here. And then the customer walks in at 10:05, and this is my first thought. How can you possibly be hungry and up at 10:05 wanting to? So I'm mad that they are. I'm mad. You know.
But then again, okay, so let's talk about the steakhouse. You walk in, you're greeted, everybody's happy to see you, they're nice, you know, everything's good. What else happens when you sit down? What else happens?
They probably place you, show you where to sit.
Oh, so
you
get
a menu, they hand you a menu.
So they serve, they give you, there's a menu, and I've been to a steakhouse in Chicago once. You know, it was a high-end steakhouse, and so we talked about the menu. They give you a menu. Has anybody ever been to a steakhouse or a chop house or something like
Prices.
that? No prices. That's dangerous.
No prices.
Yeah. So when you go to McDonald's, you already know the menu. You know what's on the dollar menu, right? You know what's on there. You go into a fancy restaurant. They give you they give you a menu. No price. You don't even know what's on the menu sometimes, right? It's like catch of the day, and you're like, "What's catch of the day?" And they're like, "Something you never heard of." And they're like, "How much does that cost?" Right? So, any other assumptions or perceptions about the differences in restaurants?
McDonald's gonna be cheaper.
It's cheaper, and so that says something about the clientele too, right? Anybody, you know, if you're rich, you can go to either one, but if you're not rich, you can only go to McDonald's. So if you go into McDonald's, what's the kind of clientele that you expect to see there? The kind of workers that you expect to see there? It would be, what's that?
Younger people.
Young people, no billionaires.
Right.
You know.
The manager. Just joking.
The manager is not a billionaire.
I'm just joking.
So now, that sets the stage. Actually, no pun intended, but if you knew about golf and the world of the stage, anyways, that's a joke only for another week. But to set the stage, I had you explain the differences in perceptions and assumptions. But now let's think about what if you flipped it up. When you go into McDonald's, how do you behave knowing these things? You said you're in a hurry. When you go to McDonald's,
you're gonna show that you're in a hurry.
You already know what you want.
You know what you want. You go in there.
Use manners.
What's that?
Less prone to use manners.
Yeah, because you're like, just give me what I want, and then they're mad at you, and you're mad back at them. And
yeah.
So
yeah, you do expect a little bit.
They're mad to be there, and you're mad to also be there. You're like, I mean, deep down, you're like, I don't want to be here. I'm only here because I'm in a hurry. I don't love cheeseburgers. Yeah, I would rather have a pulled pork sandwich from like some expensive restaurant or some lobster or something. But here I have to eat this cheeseburger that tastes like cardboard. That maybe the dude's spitting. So nobody. But then you go to the expensive restaurant, and you know how things are gonna go.
I guess it's right.
What if you walked into McDonald's and you expected these things that were from the expensive steakhouse?
You'll behave differently.
What if you walked in there and you were like, "Where's the greeter?" How would they react? What if you walked in and you said that to them? Where's the greeter at?
They probably think you're trying to be funny.
And then you walked up to the counter and you said, "What's on the menu today?" And they'd be like, "It's right there." And then you would say, "Do you have a catch of the day or a soup of the day?" And how are they going to respond to that? They're like, "Are you?"
They're probably just trying to be funny.
Yeah. What if you said, "Can I get a menu?"
I said, "Can I talk to the manager?" I asked them off, but no one talks to this person anymore. I used to work at McDonald's.
They expect for you to know that, considering McDonald's.
So exactly, and that's actually going to be in the slideshow. There's a mutual expectation. It's not just you don't expect how they're going to behave, which you do, but then they expect how you're going to behave. So either one throws it off. So if you go and you act like a billionaire who wants a surf and turf steak catch of the day, they're going to be thrown back. But what if you walk into McDonald's and everybody's in a tux and somebody greets you, gives you a menu with no prices, sets you down at a table with the tablecloth, and there's like a fish aquarium, and they offer you wine? There's like, what would you do? Like,
I'll go somewhere else. Because if I'm in a hurry, I ain't got time for this.
Well, you freak out first, though, wouldn't you?
No.
You would not freak out.
If it happened at McDonald's.
If you walked into a Popeyes, somebody greets you, sits you down, pours you a glass of wine, and asks you if you want lobster, you would not freak out. It's you'd be looking for hidden cameras, right?
Okay.
Be like, this is messed up. Yeah, it'd be like. So there's this thing where every day you walked in here, you expect the door to be unlocked, you expect me to show up, you expect us to have a 3-hour lecture, you go to McDonald's, everything you do expect. So at the end of that whole setup, and that's going to be what we're going to be talking about today, are we just basically robots? Are we just basically programmed to do all these things?
Yeah, to a certain extent.
How so? Like, how did we get programmed to do this? Like, why?
Start at the crib. It starts at home.
So your mom takes you to McDonald's, and now you want to go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
My daughter knows every time she's right back.
Yeah. She already knows.
So she's the next generation.